Chapter 480. A strange pattern gradually appeared on the disc. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue felt that there was a vast and subtle aura in her body. That was the legendary three-eyed eagle. Immediately after, the surrounding heaven and earth energy suddenly started to surge towards her silently. The speed of devouring was actually several times faster than when she was cultivating. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked, but she still subconsciously absorbed the energy and transformed it into her own body. After some time, the commotion finally stopped. The disc suddenly transformed into a stream of light and brought the black legendary three-eyed eagle phantom into Chu Luiyue's body. Chu Luiyue clearly felt that something was different. There was another wisp of Heaven Dao's power in her body. She slowly lowered her head and looked at her hands. In this short period of time, her strength had increased by a lot. It was almost to the point of touching the barrier of a rank 4 warrior. If an ordinary rank 3 warrior contracted a divine beast and accepted the Heaven Dao's power, they would at least break through to the peak of rank 4 or even rank 5. You actually didn't even cross the threshold of a rank 4 warrior. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly said. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she shrugged. She originally thought that she had advanced quite a bit, but she didn't expect that. But her body did have this problem, and she was basically used to it. This is good too. Although relying on external forces to break through quickly can increase one's realm quickly, it might not be a good thing. She now hoped that she could spar with someone to strengthen her foundation. The Wanzheng competition was an excellent opportunity. The next morning, Chu Luiyue simply packed up and went out. Duan Ziyu was waiting outside the courtyard. Seeing him, Chu Luiyue then remembered that she was busy with the legendary three-eyed eagle yesterday and actually forgot about Mu Qinghe. "Is Vice Admiral Mu back?" she asked. Duan Ziyu said respectfully. "Lieutenant General came back last night and left an hour ago." "Left? What's so urgent?" Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Why was Mu Qinghe so busy? The injuries on his body shouldn't have fully recovered yet, right? "I don't know about that. The Deputy General asked me to bring you to the Wanzheng competition." Chu Luiyue smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Lieutenant Duan." When he woke up in the morning, Hong Yao had already left. She must have gone to find Mu Qinghe. Actually, she wanted to see him, but now was not the time. She could only wait. "The next time Vice Admiral Mu comes back, please inform me, Lieutenant Duan. I have something to discuss with Vice Admiral Mu." Because of Hong Yao, Duan Ziyu was more polite to Chu Luiyue. "Don't worry, Miss Chu." With that, the two of them headed to the Xuanji Square together. On the main street, people were already coming and going. It was very lively. Most of them were heading in the same direction. Chu Luiyue and Duan Ziyu followed the crowd forward. Although Duan Ziyu was wearing black armor, because the black cavalry was everywhere in Xiling, he didn't attract much attention. Instead, it was Chu Luiyue who attracted a lot of attention. No matter where she went, her alluring face would become the most eye-catching existence. Who is that girl? Why haven't I seen her in Xiling City before? With such beauty, she definitely isn't a nobody. She must have come from outside Heaven's canopy to participate in the Wanzheng competition? I recognize her. She's the girl who defeated Wu Zhao yesterday. Seems like I got it right. Chu Luiyue. It was unknown who suddenly said this, but it caused quite a commotion in the crowd. As a beginner Stage 5 warrior, Wu Zhao was defeated by a Stage 3 warrior in Pingliang Square. He was even asked for 10 white crystal coins by the other party before he could escape. This matter had already spread throughout the entire Xiling city. Actually, a battle of this level normally wouldn't attract so many people's attention. After all, there were many powerful figures here. But the difference between the two people's levels was too big. Jumping so many levels to battle and winning in the end naturally made everyone very curious. They didn't expect it to be her. Chu Luiyue was already used to such gazes and discussions. She completely ignored them and walked forward. Instead, it was Duan Ziyu who couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. Actually, he already heard about this matter yesterday. But thinking about it now, he still felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. Especially on this day of interacting with Chu Luiyue, The feeling she gave people was gentle and noble from beginning to end, not like that kind of ruthless character at all. But the person personally selected by the deputy general was naturally not ordinary. Furthermore, he clearly felt that the aura on Chu Liyue's body was actually much stronger than yesterday. This girl might really be hiding her abilities. Xuanji Square was the second largest square in the entire Xiling city. It was enough to accommodate 100,000 people at the same time. Chu Liyue arrived with the crowd and saw the all-too-familiar square. Around it were circular steps. At this time, there were already many people waiting on top, clearly wanting to watch the show. After all, in this Wanzheng competition, all the participants were cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. One could imagine how exciting the competition would be. Around the competition grounds, the black cavalry were dressed in armor and holding spears, neatly lined up. And on the square, there were also many people standing scattered around. At a rough glance, there were at least 200 to 300 people. And there were still people going up continuously. Those people were obviously cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes. Among those people, there were actually a few familiar faces. This Wanzheng competition didn't seem to be specially prepared for cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian outside Heaven's Canopy. Some of the younger generation's geniuses in Xiling City had also come. What exactly were Shangguan Wan and the rest planning to do? "Miss Chu, I can only send you here," Duan Ziyu said in a low voice. "I will wait for you there." Chu Liyue nodded slightly and walked forward. When she reached the edge of the square, 2 soldiers blocked her way. "Please show your identity." Chu Liyue thought for a moment and raised her hand, showing the bracelet on her wrist to the 2 of them. The 2 of them confirmed it before retreating. "Please." Chu Liyue had just gone up when she heard whispers from the side. One of the voices was rather familiar. She turned her head to look. She saw a few people standing together, pointing at her and whispering to each other. The person in the middle was Zhao Yunji, who had a grudge with her the day before. When she noticed Chu Liyue looking over, she didn't feel guilty. Instead, she sneered and raised her voice. "Yes, it's her." The few people beside her looked disgusted. "She's really just a stage 3 cultivator? Where did she get the guts to offend our Soaring Cloud sect? She doesn't look old, but she's very arrogant." Zhao Yunji's eyes flashed with a hint of smugness as she walked in front of Chu Liyue. "Chu Liyue, I want to challenge you. Do you dare to accept?" Chapter 481. Of course, Chu Liyue wouldn't reject someone who was rushing to her death. "You're welcome." Zhao Yunji didn't expect Chu Liyue to agree so easily. She didn't have the chance to say the threats and sarcastic words she had prepared. She couldn't help but feel aggrieved. She said in a low voice, "You can be as arrogant as you want. Later, you'll know the consequences of offending the Soaring Cloud sect." In Xiling City, there were many sects and factions. The Soaring Cloud sect was one of the best. It was undeniably a first-rate sect. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across the people behind her. From their clothes and the symbol on their left chest, she could tell that they were young disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect. However, she wasn't very familiar with them. Other than the Soaring Cloud sect's sect master and a few elders, whom she had seen more often, the other disciples were rarely seen. Sensing Chu Liyue's gaze, Zhao Yunji thought that she was afraid and said proudly, "You don't have to look. There's no need to look anymore. Those are the most outstanding geniuses among the younger generation of the Soaring Cloud sect. With your background and strength, it's impossible for you to be on par with them in your entire life. If I didn't persuade them this time, they would have already taken action for me. At that time, you wouldn't even be able to leave this square standing." She moved closer and stared at Chu Liyue, then sneered, "You don't have to thank me. There's no need to thank me. I just wanted to deal with you personally." Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. This Zhao Yunji looked gentle and harmless, but her heart was ruthless. Unfortunately, there was something wrong with her brain. Previously, in the northern borderline, Chen Shiyuan was defeated by Jian Fengqi in one move. Even if they didn't know Jian Fengqi, they should have done a private investigation to confirm the opponent's identity. Moreover, Jian Fengqi's appearance was very special. It wasn't hard to find out if they asked around. However, it was obvious that they didn't ask anything after returning to Xiling. Did they really think that they were invincible with just the Soaring Cloud sect? The Soaring Cloud sect was good, but in Xiling, there were many stronger sections. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. I'm looking forward to it. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was so stubborn, Zhao Yunji was annoyed. She said angrily, "Then come with me to sort the items now. My opponent for the first round will be you." Chu Luiyue frowned. Sort? You don't even know such an important thing. Zhao Yunji widened her eyes in amusement and mockery as she looked at Chu Luiyue with disdain. It's probably because your background is too lowly, so no one is willing to tell you, right? Chu Luiyue scanned her surroundings and indeed saw two elders in white robes standing in the middle of the square. In front of them was a gigantic black jade board. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that it was a list of names. The names were arranged in pairs in order. In front of the jade board, there were also many people standing in pairs. They seemed to be waiting for the two old men to write their names. The first round is done in pairs? Chu Luiyue asked with narrowed eyes. Of course. Moreover, this is only the preliminaries. After this round, it will be considered the official competition, and those who are eliminated in this round will be kicked out. Therefore, Zhao Yunji decided to step on Chu Luiyue from the start. But, you don't dare? Chu Luiyue chuckled. Why wouldn't I dare? Just go. With that, she walked towards the center. Zhao Yunji looked at her carefree expression and thought to herself, let's see how long you can pretend to be dumb. On the square, although everyone seemed to be standing casually, they were all secretly observing others. Who knew which one of them would be his opponent in the next round? There was no harm in knowing more about it. Chu Luiyue and Zhao Yunji walked over one after another and immediately attracted the attention of many people. There was no other reason. It was because Chu Luiyue was the only Stage 3 warrior in the square. It was impossible not to be conspicuous. Some people's gazes toward Chu Luiyue immediately became strange. Are you kidding me? There's actually a Stage 3 warrior participating? She's really bold. Doesn't she know how cruel the competition is? Or is she just here to have fun? This is Xiling. Who dares to say that they're here to have fun? I'm envious of the girl beside her. She's definitely going to win this round. Why didn't I notice it just now? Chu Luiyue pretended not to hear anything and quietly queued up. Soon, it was her and Zhao Yunji's turn. Just put the beads on your bracelets here. One of the elders pointed at a groove at the bottom of the jade board. I'll go first. Zhao Yunji was one step ahead of him and placed her bead on it. The bronze bead emitted a faint light. Then, a name suddenly appeared in the empty space on the jade board. Zhao Yunji. Below her name, a small line of words appeared at the same time and quickly disappeared. Chu Luiyue, who was standing nearby, could clearly see that the line of words said, Soaring Cloud Sect, Chen Xiun. This was an indication of her identity. The two old men glanced at each other and nodded their heads. The old man standing on the left even had a smile on his face. I heard that you're only 17 years old this year and are already at the beginner stage of Stage 5. Not bad. If you perform well, Soaring Cloud Sect will have another outstanding disciple. Zhao Yunji was flattered. Thank you, Elder Qiushi. Before she came, she had heard from her cousin that Elder Qiushi was also from Soaring Cloud Sect. Although he later became an elder in the palace, he had always taken care of Soaring Cloud Sect. Elder Qiushi was even more satisfied that the girl in front of him knew his name. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but curl her lips. Chen Shiyuan and Zhao Yunji arrived at Xiling later than her, but in just one night, Zhao Yunji not only knew the process of the competition, she even knew the identity of the exam elder. It could be said that she didn't put in any effort. Who are you in a group with? Elder Qiushi asked. Zhao Yunji smiled sweetly and pointed at Chu Luiyue behind her. It's her. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was only a Stage 3 warrior, Elder Qiushi's smile faded a little. You just have to follow what she did before. Chu Luiyue didn't mind his cold attitude. She stepped forward and put the bead into the groove. A faint glow flashed. On the jade board, her name finally appeared next to Zhao Yunji's name. Chu Luiwei. Soon, a small line of words appeared below. Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Fengqi. Chu Luiwei blinked. That's not right. She was brought here by Mu Qinghe. How could Jian Fengqi be here? Lu Xingyi didn't even ask yesterday. He must have thought that she was brought here by Jian Fengqi. However, Zhao Yunji's expression froze. Jian Fengqi, the rumored tyrant of Xiling City, the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Fengqi? Digression. Your phone has been fixed. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 482. She subconsciously wanted to deny this conjecture, but that line of words was clear. Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Fengqi. In the entire Xiling City, there was only one Dragon Teeth Mountain, and only one Jian Fengqi. She only knew this person because she had heard her cousin mention him when they were chatting. Dragon Teeth Mountain and Soaring Cloud sect had been enemies for many years, and they had always disliked each other. In his description, this Jian Fengqi was arrogant, unruly, and had no regard for the law. He had even scolded the 9 elders of Soaring Cloud sect to their faces. The entire Soaring Cloud sect hated Jian Fengqi to the core. However, he was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. His status was honorable and he was extremely powerful. Not to mention normal people, most of the aristocratic families in Xiling City had to be polite when they saw him. The young man they met that day, could it really be? She felt uneasy and walked to the side with shaky footsteps. When Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu Chun saw Jian Fengqi's name, they were both shocked. When they looked at Chu Luiwei again, their expressions changed slightly. Chu Luiwei put away the pearl and noticed that the duo's expressions were a little off. He asked with a smile, "Is there anything else, elders?" Elder Duanmu Chun shook his head. "Don't worry, your serial number is 53. Go and prepare." Chu Luiwei responded and turned around to walk to the other side. The 2 elders looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. He didn't seem to be sent out this time, right? But this list was registered after Lu Xingyi met him personally. It can't be wrong. Maybe we just didn't know. Other than that, there seemed to be no other explanation. The people behind them had already walked forward. The 2 of them stopped and continued to order the items. Zhao Yunji's mind was in a mess. She quickly walked to the Soaring Cloud sect disciples who were talking with her. Seeing that her expression was not right, they quickly asked, "Yunji, what's wrong?" Zhao Yunji's fingers twisted together, and she asked anxiously, "That Jian Fengqi, what does he look like?" They were all stunned. "Why are you suddenly asking about him?" Zhao Yunji forced a smile. "I've heard my cousin mention it before. I'm a little curious." Of course he looks like a scourge." A round-eyed woman had an indignant look on her face, and there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. Another woman smiled and said, "Don't scare Yunji. She was just asking. Also, don't let other people see you like this, lest they bring up another troublesome matter." As soon as he said that, the round-eyed woman stomped her feet and restrained herself a little. Jian Fengqi was tall and was even taller than the average man. He was also born with a pair of icy blue eyes. This was the special feature of Dragon Teeth Mountain's bloodline. If you see him, you should be able to recognize him at a glance. However, Jian Fengqi has too many grudges with the Soaring Cloud sect, so it's better not to see him. The more Zhao Yunji listened, the colder her heart became. Sure enough. Not only had she met him, she had also severely offended him. That was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. He was someone who was on equal footing with the elders of the Soaring Cloud sect. Even the Soaring Cloud sect's sect master tolerated him. Her cousin was only one of the close to 200 disciples under the sect master. Fighting with Jian Fengqi was like hitting a rock with an egg. Not to mention her. Zhao Yunji closed her eyes in despair. Even if her cousin hadn't seen Jian Fengqi with his own eyes, he should be able to guess it. What should she do? "Yunji, are you okay?" Those people asked with concern. "Are you too nervous?" "It's fine. Your opponent, Chu Luiwei, is only a stage 3 warrior. He's definitely not your match. Hearing that, Zhao Yunji's expression became slightly better. That's right. At this point, even if she went to apologize, Chu Luiyue and Jian Fengqi definitely wouldn't go easy on her. Rather than that, she might as well win this round first. As long as she performed well in the Wanzheng competition, they wouldn't be able to do anything to her. Thank you, brothers and sisters. I'll definitely work hard. Your opponent is called Chu Luiyue, right? A young man suddenly thought of something and quickly asked. Zhao Yunji nodded. That young man's expression instantly became very strange. It's actually her? Zhao Yunji and the others were confused. That young man clapped his hands and hurriedly reminded them. Did you guys forget that there was a rumor in Xiling City yesterday that a Stage 3 girl defeated a Stage 5 warrior? I just remembered that the girl's name is Chu Luiyue. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhao Yunji was the most shocked. There's such a thing? How is that possible? Although some warriors can fight above their level, this is too exaggerated. She had been busy with the Wanzheng competition yesterday and didn't know about this rumor. It's true. Many people saw it at Pingliang Square. Everyone suddenly fell silent and looked at Zhao Yunji. Speaking of which, Zhao Yunji was also a beginner Stage 5 warrior. Zhao Yunji clenched her fists. So what if the rumor is true? Who knows if it's a coincidence? Or did she use some despicable means? No matter what, Chu Luiyue definitely can't win against me. She could only win today and not lose. While Zhao Yunji was anxious, Chu Luiyue was leisurely and carefree. Jian Fengqi's name was only seen by the few people standing nearby. It hadn't spread, so everyone looked at her the same way as before. She stood there alone, looking calm and collected, but in fact, she was listening to the conversation of the people next to her. So that means that the third princess won't be coming today? That's right. Now that the entire Tianling dynasty's matters have piled up on her, this is only the first round of the preliminaries. Of course, she won't come personally. However, I heard that the third princess fiancé, the eldest young master of the Jiang family, will be coming. As if struck by lightning, Chu Luiyue's blood froze. Digression. After today's event, mobile users please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 483. The eldest young master of the Jiang family? The eldest son of Grand Tutor Jiang Lizhua? Wasn't he the princess in the past? Sure. Do you want to die? How dare you say such things? What's wrong? When I came to West Hill 2 years ago, didn't I say? You said it was 2 years ago. Today is different from the past. Many things have changed. That person back then, something went wrong with his cultivation. This kind of thing is more or less disgraceful. Now, the entire Tianling dynasty doesn't mention it anymore. Besides, after that person passed away, the third princess was devastated. Fortunately, this eldest young master of the Jiang family accompanied and comforted her, so she finally got through it. In addition, there were many things that they needed to deal with together, so it was normal for them to be together over time. No matter what, the two of them are not suitable together. General, where is he? Back then, she and the eldest young master of the Jiang family were about to get married. Anyway, these things are not something we can discuss in private. Don't say the wrong thing again. That person will be here later. The few of them quickly quieted down. Chu Luiyue was familiar with the appearance of one of them, but the rest were very unfamiliar. She quickly retracted her gaze and lowered her eyes to hide the emotions in her eyes. So after her death, there were such rumors. After a while, the corners of her lips curled up into a cold smile. Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing were really capable. They inverted black and white and mixed up right and wrong. Back then, it was clearly the two of them who secretly had an affair and betrayed her. In the end, in the eyes of everyone, she became the person who couldn't be mentioned. Jiang Yuqing was her fiancé more than a year ago, but now he was Shangguan Wan's. However, everyone was quite supportive of this, and there was almost no criticism. It was really hard on those two people to put in so much effort. Everyone, according to your order, go to your positions. Elder Qiushi stood in the air, his qi deep in his dantian, and his voice spread far and wide. Chu Luiyue looked up. It turned out that everyone had finished their order. Elder Duanmu Chun waved his sleeves and the huge black jade slab quickly flew to the west side of the square. It floated there quietly, emitting a faint glow. Almost everyone in the square could see the rows of names on it. Elder Duanmu Chun followed closely behind, leaping to the side of the jade slab. The huge square was suddenly split into squares. A number appeared on each square, and they were arranged in order. Everyone walked towards their own squares. Chu Luiyue walked to the number 53 foot and looked up at her surroundings. Xuanji Square was extremely spacious. Even though it was divided into 100 squares, each square didn't look small. It was even bigger than the biggest competition venue in country Yaochen. Most of the people were already in position. Chu Luiyue glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw Zhao Yunji walking over. However, there was something wrong with her complexion. Her eyebrows were drooping, and her eyes looked a little dazed, as if she had just suffered a serious injury. She was completely different from the arrogant and haughty person from before. Sensing Chu Luiyue's gaze, Zhao Yunji looked up. Chu Luiyue clearly saw the flash of panic in her eyes. Panic? Interesting. Chu Luiyue crossed his arms, tapped his chin lightly and laughed. It seemed like Zhao Yunji finally knew something she should have known. What are you laughing at? Zhao Yunji was very sensitive at this moment. When she saw the smile on Chu Luiyue's face, she immediately exploded. Chu Luiyue's smile didn't change. I wanted to laugh, so I naturally laughed. If you want to order me around, it won't be too late to do so after you beat me. If Zhao Yunji heard this before, she would only think that Chu Luiyue was courting death. However, after hearing those rumors, she felt a little uneasy when she looked at Chu Luiyue now. This Chu Luiyue might really have some tricks up his sleeve. Of course I will beat you, Zhao Yunji said stubbornly. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered with her. He chuckled softly and looked at Elder Qiushi. Zhao Yunji walked to the same square. Her hands were clenched into fists, and her throat was dry. Elder Qiushi looked around. When the surrounding voices quietened down, he stroked his beard in satisfaction and said in a deep voice, "The purpose of this Wanzheng competition is to recruit talents. Those who can participate in this competition are all cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian from all over the world. Those who can stand in this square are all geniuses who are sought after by the world." As soon as he finished speaking, many people in the square revealed proud expressions. However, even if you have top-notch talent, you still need to go through many trials and hardships to become a peerless expert. Without enough resources and a firm belief, you will achieve nothing. Everyone's expression became more serious. Some of you are from the Tianling dynasty, but most of you are from outside heaven's canopy. Although the geniuses of the Tianling dynasty have resources, they may not have enough vigilance because they have been living in comfort for a long time. As for the geniuses outside heaven's canopy, they may have top-notch talent, but their cultivation is often delayed because of the lack of resources. Therefore, the third princess and the prince consort decided to hold this Wanzheng competition. I believe most of you already know that today's competition is just a preliminary round. There will be 3, 8, 12 participants, and you will compete in pairs. Only the winner can enter the next round. As long as you can successfully enter the next round, everyone will receive generous rewards. And those who don't have a sect will be given special permission to enter one of the many sects in Xiling City. Everyone was in an uproar. This meant that as long as they won today's competition, they would be able to enter a Xiling sect unconditionally. This was a huge temptation. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 484. Of course, this didn't mean that as long as you entered the next round, you could casually choose a sect. After you say which sect you want to join, you still have to pass the sect's examination. If you don't pass, you have to choose again. The surrounding noise quieted down, but most people were still enthusiastic. Actually, this was very normal. After all, the sects that could establish themselves in Xiling were almost the most outstanding sects in the entire Tianling dynasty. They had always been very strict in their selection of disciples. If anyone could enter, it would be too ridiculous. However, everyone here is a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian. I believe that the various sects will also welcome you. Elder Qiushi added, I believe that everyone also understands that the better your performance in the Wanzheng competition, the more you will be favored by the powerful sects. The chances of you being selected will also be higher. Everyone had different expressions. Some were excited, some were nervous, and some seemed to be fantasizing about which sect to choose. The top 100 contestants are now in position. After the competition starts, there is no time limit. It will only end when one side admits defeat or is kicked out of the square they are in. After every competition ends, those who are ranked behind will take their place. The loser's name will automatically disappear from this black jade board. Elder Qiushi looked around. Now, do you have any other questions? Elder Qiushi. A youth raised his hand and asked loudly. In this competition, is it fine as long as you win, regardless of the methods used? Elder Qiushi stroked his beard. That's right. As long as you don't kill, there are no other restrictions. If you win, it will be your ability. Some of the foreign contestants from Heaven's Canopy had a slight change in expression. With this sentence, it was easy to imagine how cruel and intense the Wanzheng competition would be. However, most of the people in Xiling City had excited looks on their faces. There were even waves of excited cheers coming from the spectator stands. Zhao Yunji's face was a little pale as she muttered softly, This? How can this be? Isn't this too unruly? Chu Liwei glanced at her and raised his eyebrows. Why, didn't your cousin tell you that it has always been like this in Xiling? Countless powerhouses from all over the world had gathered in Xiling City. The concept of the strong being respected was more deeply rooted in the hearts of the people here than anywhere else. This place seemed to be bustling with activity, but in fact, there were bloody and cruel battles happening every day in various parts of the city. Every day, countless people died on the streets because they were weak. It was already pretty good that the Wanzheng meet only requested that no one be killed. Zhao Yunji bit her lip and didn't say anything for a while. She had only heard her cousin talk about how noble and powerful Xiling City was, but he had never mentioned any of this. I hereby announce that the preliminaries for the Wanzheng competition begin. Elder Qiushi shouted in a deep voice. In the arena, someone reacted quickly and took the initiative to strike first. The entire square instantly fell into a chaotic battle. Fortunately, each square was spacious enough, and there was a layer of enchantment glowing with a faint silver light around it, making it easy for everyone to distinguish and not confuse each other. Many people's gazes were focused on Chu Luiwei and Zhao Yunji's competition area. That rank 3 warrior is the lowest level here, right? I think they'll be the first to finish this round. That might not be the case, right? Haven't you heard that Chu Luiwei is quite strong? You're saying that she's the girl who defeated Wu Zhao? I heard that she came with Jian Fengqi and has Jian Fengqi's support? Maybe Wu Zhao went easy on her? That's true. How can it be so mysterious? I heard that many sect disciples are participating in the competition this time. It must be very exciting. The audience was almost full, and there was a hubbub of voices. Looking around, most of them were discussing the competition in full swing. However, in the direction that the black jade board was facing, there was a small area that was somewhat out of place from the surroundings. Those few people looked very ordinary, but the aura on them was unapproachable. In the West Hill, there were too many people with power and influence. If one wasn't careful, they wouldn't even know how they died. Therefore, the people around them also stayed obediently and didn't take the initiative to provoke these people. One of them was a man in an aqua blue robe. Although his appearance was ordinary, his aura was noble and he didn't seem like an ordinary person. His gaze swept across the black jade board lightly, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Interesting, there's actually a rank 3 warrior participating this time? A man beside him nodded and said, I heard that she just came yesterday and caused quite a commotion in Pingliang Square. She's much stronger than ordinary rank 3 warriors. To be able to fight above her level, she must have some special ability. Furthermore, she's 2 whole levels above her. Even if her realm is low now, her potential is not bad. The man in the aqua-blue robe's gaze landed on the square. A slender and exquisite figure of a young girl came into view. From his angle, he could only see the simple hair tied up and the red skirt fluttering in the wind. The black and red complemented each other. It was clearly a simple outfit, but there was an indescribable charm to it. From afar, it looked like a vivid and flowing painting. The man beside him quietly made a hand gesture. He narrowed his eyes. That girl's Daijing Yuan meridian is actually intermediate. She doesn't look old. She said she's only 14 years old. Where did she come from? Country Yaochen. The man in the aqua-blue robe suddenly paused. Yaochen? Isn't that the place Mu Qinghe went to? Yes. And she was brought here by Jian Fengqi. The man beside him noticed that his expression was a little off and asked apprehensively, "Eldest young master, what's wrong? Is there something wrong?" The man pondered for a moment and shook his head. Nothing. It seemed like there was more to this matter than met the eye. In the arena, Zhao Yunji pulled out a blue rapier. An icy aura quickly spread from it. Very quickly, a thin layer of frost formed on the thin sword. Even the ground under her feet began to be covered with a thin layer of ice. Ice river slash. Zhao Yunji poured all the force in her body into the blue rapier. A silver light quickly spread from the hilt. It was like a layer of ice breaking. A cracking sound rang out, and a piercingly cold and ferocious sword chi surged out. Zhao Yunji tiptoed and leaped up. The blue rapier pierced straight for Chu Liyue's heart. This ice river sword was made of extremely precious ice iron and was filled with the icy aura of an extremely cold place. It was extremely powerful. It had never tasted defeat in countless battles over the years. Zhao Yunji stared at Chu Liyue. To be able to lose to my ice river sword, you didn't come here in vain. With that, the sword approached his throat. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 485. A ball of red flame suddenly burned in Chu Liyue's palm. The flame danced happily like a fairy, causing the surrounding temperature to rise by a lot. Celestial physician? Zhao Yunji was shocked, but then she sneered. Turning the force into fire is good for refining medicine, but if you want to use it to win this competition, you're too naive. Chu Liyue didn't say anything. He flicked his finger, and the fist-sized ball of flame instantly flew out. In an instant, it landed on the tip of Zhao Yunji's ice river sword. You overestimate yourself, break. Zhao Yunji shouted in a low voice. A gust of cold air surged out from the tip of the sword. She wanted to completely freeze the ball of flame. However, the scene in her imagination didn't happen. The ball of flame wasn't affected at all. Instead, it turned into a stream of fire and quickly burned along the ice river sword. Crackle! Ice and fire collided. The layer of frost that covered the ice stream sword suddenly exploded. Countless pieces of ice were wrapped in sparks and scattered in all directions. However, before they landed on the ground, the ice had completely melted and evaporated. Finally, when they landed on the ground, only burning flames were left. As the flames burned, the layer of ice that had just frozen on the ground began to quickly melt. The remaining flames spread all the way to the sword hilt. A scalding heat came from the sword hilt. Zhao Yunji cried out in pain and uncontrollably threw the ice river sword. Bang! Bang! Zhao Yunji looked over in panic and anger, only to see that the ice river sword had been completely wrapped in the red flame. If she had let go a little later, her hand would definitely have been burned. You, what the hell is this? She said angrily, but there was still some lingering fear in her eyes. Although she wasn't a celestial physician, she had seen many since she was young. There had never been a celestial physician's flame that was so terrifying. There was definitely something wrong with Chu Liyue's force flames. It's not a damn thing, but you'll soon find out if you can use it to win this competition. The origin power within Chu Liyue's body converged, and a ball of flames quickly condensed on each of his palms. Zhao Yunji shuddered. If that flame landed on his body, even the cold energy stored in the ice stream sword was unable to resist this flame, let alone a mortal like her? Zhao Yunji took 2 steps back and crossed her fingers in front of her. Shadow lock. The void in front of her suddenly rippled. It was like a gentle breeze blowing across the surface of a lake, creating circles of ripples. A ripple slowly spread towards Chu Liyue's calf. Wherever it passed, it actually left a clearly visible black spatial crack. The first lock, gushing spring. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the space where the ripples passed through had become viscous. His feet, in particular, felt as if they were bearing 1,000 pounds of weight. It was difficult to move. The scattered flames on the ground were also affected by this strong pressure and became much weaker. Zhao Yunji was overjoyed. This move was also one of her trump cards. Because it consumed a lot of origin power, she rarely used it. She didn't think that she would be forced to this step after just exchanging blows with Chu Liyue. Zhao Yunji was very sullen, but she knew that there was no other way. Chu Liyue's strength was clearly much stronger than she had imagined. If she didn't get rid of him quickly, it would only be more troublesome later. The second lock, Origin Gate. The second ripple appeared and spread towards Chu Liyue's waist. Zhao Yunji's origin core continued to surge with origin power, crazily consuming it. This shadow-locking art was actually a genuine Earth-rank martial technique. The first 2 locks were just a foundation, the real power was in the third lock. As long as she could successfully use the third lock, she would be able to fully display the power of an Earth-rank martial skill. However, to the current her, using the third lock would exhaust all of her energy. In other words, if she couldn't win with this attack, she would have no chance at all. But how could she not win? Zhao Yunji quickly looked up at Chu Liyue and saw that she was indeed trapped in the first 2 locks. Even the flames in her hands were almost extinguished. Zhao Yunji's heart calmed down. The first 2 locks were enough to temporarily stop the origin power in Chu Liyue's body from circulating. She wanted to use this time to prepare the third lock. Directly defeat Chu Liyue. The third ripple finally formed. Zhao Yunji suppressed the excitement in her heart and recklessly poured out origin power. Her face was a bit pale, and her vision seemed to be a bit blurry. This was a sign of exhaustion. However, Zhao Yunji didn't stop. Once she thought about how she could directly defeat Chu Liyue this time, she was filled with excitement. Buzz. As the ripples in front of her became complete bit by bit, a frightening aura gradually spread out. Many people in the audience noticed the commotion and couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Earth-rank martial skill? The preliminaries have just begun. How can someone use such a move? That's Zhao Yunji and Chu Liyue? She's actually so afraid of Chu Liyue? Didn't you see earlier? Chu Liyue broke Zhao Yunji's origin weapon. If Zhao Yunji doesn't counterattack, Chu Liyue will win. With this Earth-rank martial skill, Chu Liyue is definitely going to lose. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the third ripple was finally completed. Third lock, Heaven Spirit. Zhao Yunji pushed forward with both hands. The last ripple slowly but firmly covered Chu Liyue's head. Chu Liyue stared at the ripple that contained a powerful aura. Her black eyes were like black jade as they flashed with a cold light. At the same time, the origin power in her body continuously flowed into her hands. Seeing that Chu Liyue didn't move, Zhao Yunji thought that she was afraid and couldn't help but fiercely say, "It's too late to admit defeat now. Today I will..." Boom! Before she could finish her sentence, 2 balls of flames suddenly appeared in Chu Liyue's palms. In the next moment, her hands clenched together. The 2 balls of flames fiercely collided. The dazzling flames rose and almost enveloped her entire body. The ripples in front of her waist disappeared in an instant. Zhao Yunji's body shook and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Her aura instantly weakened by a lot. The flames quickly transformed into a red flaming whip. Chu Liyue swung her wrist. But the flaming whip fiercely hit the rune below. Crack! The rune broke. Zhao Yunji's face was as pale as a ghost. No. Chu Liyue swung her whip. She whipped the last rune in front of her. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The flaming whip actually directly slashed through the middle of the rune. Zhao Yunji looked up in shock and saw the crimson flaming whip whipping towards her. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 486. Zhao Yunji tiptoed and quickly retreated. She even left behind a few afterimages. Slap. The crimson flaming whip lashed heavily on the ground, instantly leaving a charred mark. Although Zhao Yunji barely dodged it, her left arm was not spared. The flaming whip had struck her forearm, leaving a bloody wound on it. Her entire sleeve had been set ablaze. Seeing that the flames were about to spread, Zhao Yunji didn't even think about it and removed the entire sleeve. Rip, her slender arm was exposed to everyone's eyes. Although there was a shocking wound on her forearm that was dripping with blood, the girl's fair skin still attracted a lot of attention. Her pitiful appearance caused many people to become restless. All kinds of gazes fell on her, making Zhao Yunji feel ashamed and resentful. She had a noble status and outstanding talent in Suiyang Empire. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? But before she could react, Chu Liyue's second whip had already landed. Zhao Yunji retreated again. That Zhao Yunji's movement technique is not bad. Looking at her speed, she's almost at the middle stage of the 5th level. She should be able to wait. Chu Liyue also moved. How is she so fast? Chu Liyue jumped up, and her figure was like the wind as she quickly rushed forward. More importantly, her speed didn't seem to be much slower than Zhao Yunji's. The man in the blue robe's eyes suddenly focused. This movement technique looked a bit familiar, but after looking at it for a while, he felt that it wasn't. That Zhao Yunji is going to lose, he said calmly. The man next to him was startled. Eldest young master, why do you say that? Although that Zhao Yunji suffered a bit before, she's still 2 levels higher than Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue won't be able to catch up to her. No, she can catch up. The man laughed. The others looked at each other and couldn't help but look over. At this moment, Chu Liyue suddenly threw out the fire whip in her hand. In the next moment, she tiptoed and jumped onto the fire whip. With the help of the fire whip, she leaped continuously. It was actually following the path of the flame whip. The distance between the two of them was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. She was dressed in red and her black hair fluttered in the wind. She was as light and lively as a phoenix dancing in a raging inferno, dazzling everyone. Zhao Yunji watched as Chu Liyue sprinted towards her. Her heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out of her mouth. She tried her best to retreat, but Chu Liyue was faster than her. She hurriedly looked back and was shocked to find that she was about to be forced out of the realm. Once she crossed the line, she would lose. Zhao Yunji clenched her teeth, turned around, and headed in another direction. A cold smile appeared on Chu Liyue's lips. She had no interest in continuing to play with Zhao Yunji. Time to end this. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and suddenly leaped. It landed on the tail of the flame whip. A silver light flew out from her hand. Zhao Yunji suddenly felt a cold wind coming from behind her. Danger! She almost instinctively rolled on the ground. Something stabbed into the ground where she was just a moment ago. Zhao Yunji hurriedly looked over and saw that it was an extremely sharp dagger. Because a lot of power had been injected into it, the tail was still trembling slightly. Zhao Yunji heaved a sigh of relief. However, just as she was thinking of how to counterattack, she suddenly felt a chill in her chest. She slowly looked down and saw that a flying dagger as thin as a cicada's wing had pierced through her chest. If it had been just a little bit more, it would have pierced through her heart. Her footsteps suddenly stopped. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen as she stood there, frozen on the spot. Drip. A drop of blood suddenly fell. It was such a soft sound, but she heard it very clearly. That was because it was her blood. Chu Liyue jumped down from the flame whip and landed in front of Zhao Yunji. I'll give you a chance to admit defeat, Chu Liyue said. A pool of blood slowly appeared on Zhao Yunji's clothes and then slowly spread in all directions. She opened her mouth and it was filled with the smell of blood. Her voice was so weak that it was almost undetectable. However, just as everyone thought that she was going to admit defeat, She suddenly flung something out from her sleeve. Chi. Countless sharp silver needles flew out together. And there was a faint blue-purple light on it. It was clearly dipped in poison. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The two of them were very close to each other, and this hidden weapon attack was too sudden. Chu Luwe couldn't dodge it at all. Chu Luwe suddenly sneered and waved her sleeve as well. A silver barrier suddenly appeared and enveloped her. It was the crystal barrier. That crystal barrier was slightly damaged. Before they parted, Rong Xiu gave her a new one. Thud thud thud. Those silver needles hit the crystal barrier and were quickly bounced back. Zhao Yunji was shocked and immediately dodged. However, a few silver needles still pierced her body. Her pale and dry lips immediately turned a bluish purple. Chu Liyue's eyes turned cold. This poison took effect very quickly and was very harmful to the body. Based on the amount of needles used just now, it wasn't hard to kill someone. Zhao Yunji was desperate and actually tried to kill her in front of everyone. On the other side, Zhao Yunji clearly knew how terrifying this poison was and quickly took out the antidote to consume. Chu Lue put away the crystal barrier, raised her hand, and held the fire whip in her hand again. Then she poured in her force again. Boom boom. The fire whip burned even more fiercely than before. There were even sparks flying everywhere. Chu Lue swung the whip. The fire whip quickly lashed out and wrapped tightly around Zhao Yunji like a snake. Zhao Yunji was busy swallowing the antidote and was caught off guard by the fire whip. The scorching flames instantly left several scars on her body. The terrifying pain caused her mind to go blank, and she almost fainted. I admit defeat. Chu Lue. Didn't you hear? I admit defeat. Zhao Yunji screamed hysterically. Chu Lue said coldly, I already gave you a chance just now. With that, the fire whip tightened again. Zhao Yunji was in so much pain that she couldn't even say a word. Chu Lue. She already admitted defeat. You can't continue torturing her. Elder Qiushi saw this and hurriedly shouted. Chu Lue looked at him in a seemingly surprised manner. So there's such a rule? Elder Qiushi, please forgive me. This is my first time here, so it's inevitable that I don't understand some things. Elder Qiushi's eyebrows were almost on fire. Put her down. Oh, okay. Chu Lue agreed very straightforwardly and flicked his wrist. Zhao Yunzi instantly flew out. Then she fell heavily to the ground. Out of bounds. Chu Lue turned around and looked at Elder Qiushi with a bright smile. Is this enough? The man in the blue robe happened to see this scene. The red-clothed girl's bright smile and lively eyes were so familiar. His heart felt like it had been hit by something. A name buried deep in his heart was about to be called out. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 487. Sensing his abnormality, the people around him looked over. Eldest young master, what's wrong? That man stared intently at Chu Lue, his lips tightly shut. Seeing him like this, the others didn't dare to ask anything and all quieted down. On the arena, Elder Qiushi almost fainted from anger when he saw the bright and sincere smile on Chu Lue's face. What did she mean by, that's enough, right? Her last attack almost took Zhao Yunji's life. You've gone too far. Yunji already admitted defeat, but you stubbornly refused to stop. You clearly did it on purpose. Chu Lue blinked. Elder Qiushi, I respect you as a person of virtue and prestige, so I did as you said. Didn't I stop the moment you told me to? After she finished speaking, her fair fingertips lightly turned, and the flame whip quickly retracted and disappeared into her palm. She spread her hands. I believe everyone saw it clearly, right? Elder Qiushi choked. This Chu Lue was truly cunning. She did stop after he opened his mouth, but who could say that the last attack was unintentional? She had seized the perfect timing, and he couldn't really blame her for it. Then you shouldn't have been so ruthless. You're so young but you're so vicious. Chu Lue pondered for a while and asked in return, why? But didn't you say that as long as no lives were lost, you could use any means to win? Could it be that this rule doesn't apply to me? Elder Qiuxi's face turned red and white. Chu Luiwei had a sharp tongue, and he couldn't argue with her at all. After all, Zhao Yunji did lose. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. Then, he said to the black cavalry beside him, "Hurry up and take Zhao Yunji away to treat her injuries." 2 black guards quickly rushed up and carried Zhao Yunji, who was on the verge of death and covered in wounds, away. Chu Luiwei turned around and looked at the black jade board floating in the air. Zhao Yunji's name was nowhere to be seen. Only her name remained, Chu Luiwei. Only the winner could stay. Chu Luiwei looked around and raised his eyebrows slightly. They seemed to be the first to finish the competition. Match number 53, Chu Luiwei wins. Elder Duanmu Chun shouted in a deep voice. Number 101, filling in for number 53. Hearing this, Chu Luiwei was finally satisfied and walked down the stage leisurely. Countless pairs of eyes looked over at the same time. Shock, envy, jealousy, admiration. Those gazes had different meanings, but Chu Luiwei did not take them to heart. After jumping off the stage, he walked to the resting area that had been prepared beforehand and sat down to watch the battle quietly. Half of these people would become her opponents in the next round. Low voices of discussion came from behind. Chu Luiwei actually won. Winning one round might be a coincidence, but to win against 2 rank 5 warriors in a row, it's enough to prove that she really has the strength. I think she's about to break through to rank 4 warrior. When that time comes, it'll be even easier to win. But she's got guts. I heard that Zhao Yunji was brought here by Chen Xiuan from the Soaring Cloud sect. She had already agreed to enter the Soaring Cloud sect directly. No wonder Elder Qiuxi was so angry. For so many years, he had helped the Soaring Cloud sect a lot. Seeing that the Soaring Cloud sect had lost such a good seedling, how could he be indifferent? But he's an elder of the royal family after all. It's not appropriate for him to always do this. I think it's unfair for him to reprimand Chu Luiwei just now. If the person who lost was Chu Luiwei, he definitely wouldn't come out to reprimand her. Chu Luiwei sat leisurely and listened to these words. Suddenly, she felt that there seemed to be a substantial gaze in the crowd that fell on her. She was almost instinctively alarmed. She looked up. A man in a blue robe came into her sight. He looked to be in his 30s and had an ordinary appearance. But when she saw his eyes, Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. She would recognize those eyes even if they turned to ashes. Jianghu. It was obvious that he had changed his appearance, restrained his aura, and sat in the crowd. The people around him should be his followers, and they were also disguised as ordinary people. No matter who saw these people, they wouldn't give them a second glance. But she was different. She had seen Jiang Yuqing's face for so many years, and she couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. And his pair of eyes that seemed gentle and affectionate, but were actually sinister and ruthless, were like a brand that was deeply engraved in her mind. Seeing that Jiang Yuqing seemed to have noticed her gaze, Chu Luiwei immediately pretended to look away unintentionally. Even though her heart was in turmoil, the expression on her face was incomparably calm. Even the curvature of her lips did not change in the slightest, making it impossible for others to see through her. No one knew how much strength she had to rely on to suppress the killing intent that was surging crazily in her heart. Everything in the royal family's ancestral hall seemed to have happened yesterday. It was vivid in her mind and incomparably vivid. However, her heart no longer felt the pain of being betrayed. There was only the thought of tearing him into pieces. She closed her eyes. That's right, someone had said that Jiang Yuqing would come. She had actually been waiting, but Jiang Yuqing didn't appear until the competition started, so she threw this matter to the back of her mind. She didn't expect him to change his identity and blend in with the crowd. Why did he do that? With his current identity, he could have come openly. Why did he have to put in so much effort? And more importantly, just now when he looked at her, what was he looking at? Was it because she was the first to win the competition? Or was it something else? Chu Luiwei opened her eyes and looked around casually. She looked exactly the same as before. She looked completely relaxed as if she had won the competition. She could still feel Jiang Yuqing looking at her, but the emotions in her heart had gradually calmed down. Anyway, she had already changed her identity, and her appearance and age were different from before. She didn't believe that Jiang Yuqing would still be able to recognize her. Thinking of this, her mood became better. Now it seemed that she was in the dark, while he was in the clear. On the other side, Jiang Yuqing had been staring at Chu Luiyue since the first time he saw the smile on her face. At first, he really thought that it was that person, but after looking carefully for a while, he felt that he was thinking too much. Although their smiles were very similar, their facial features were still quite different. Moreover, Chu Luiyue did look like she was only 14 or 15 years old, and that person had already been buried in the sea of fire. How could he still appear? Jiang Yuqing rubbed the space between his eyebrows. It seemed that he had been too tired during this period of time, which was why he was thinking about such nonsense. Go and investigate Chu Luiyue's background. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 488. The people beside him looked at each other and found it strange. Could it be because Chu Luiyue had displayed strength that far exceeded her level? But it didn't seem that simple. When eldest young master saw Chu Luiyue for the first time, his reaction was very unusual. Although they thought so, they didn't show any abnormalities and said respectfully in a low voice, "Yes." After Jiang Yuqing denied the thought in his heart, he shifted his gaze elsewhere. There were hundreds of matches going on in the square at the same time. Among them, there were many more outstanding matches than Chu Luiyue and Zhao Yunji's. But for some reason he couldn't focus on the other matches. Instead, he would look at Chu Luiyue from time to time. Every time he found that he couldn't help but look at Chu Luiyue, Jiang Yuqing would secretly warn himself that this was the last time. But time and time again, it seemed like he couldn't control himself. Even if he forced himself not to look at her, his mind kept recalling the smile he saw for the first time. Bright, brilliant, pure, and full of spirit and craftiness. Even if the appearance was only 30% similar, this smile had 50% of the charm of that woman from many years ago. Jiang Yuqing pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. No, this isn't right. He came today to secretly check on these Daijing Yuan Meridian cultivators. He couldn't let other things disturb his mind. After repeating this several times in his heart, he finally let out a heavy sigh. Chu Luiyue naturally didn't know Jiang Yuqing's inner turmoil. On the contrary, she had completely calmed down. Before coming to West Hill, she had already made sufficient preparations. So after a short moment of surprise, she quickly accepted this matter. The most important thing now was to find out what they were planning to do by holding this Wanzheng competition. She didn't believe a single word of what Elder Qiushi said earlier. Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing definitely didn't have such foresight and breadth of mind. They clearly had other motives. Other than that, she needed to investigate the current situation in the imperial court as soon as possible. Who was it that had betrayed her back then, and who was still standing by her side? Chu Luiyue leaned against the chair and rested his chin on one hand, deep in thought. She was weak now, so she needed to find some reliable people to help her. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the square. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw that another match had ended. Another name disappeared from the black jade board. Not long after, two names disappeared almost at the same time. After she was the first to finish the competition, the other contestants in the square seemed to have been stimulated and sped up the competition. The competition instantly became more intense. Of course, this also led to more and more matches being decided. Time passed bit by bit. More and more names disappeared from the jade board. The cultivators who were carried off almost continuously. Because it was a rare opportunity, everyone wanted to win desperately. Therefore, they all used their special skills, and their injuries were particularly tragic. Some who didn't want to admit defeat were beaten until they were covered in blood and passed out. There were messy bloodstains everywhere in the square. The people in the audience seats became more and more excited, and even began to shout and cheer with red faces. Many people had already taken their seats beside Chu Luiyue. Seeing this, those from the Tianling dynasty were still okay, but those from outside Heaven's Canopy were more or less shocked. Chu Luiyue was used to it. Gradually, the people next to her seemed to have started chatting with each other. Whether they wanted to be friends or to test each other, everyone had their own thoughts, and for a moment, they were a bit friendly. However, no one took the initiative to talk to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She leisurely watched the competition on the field, glancing at the names on the jade board from time to time. "Are you crazy?" A hysterical scream suddenly came from the square. Chu Luiyue looked over and found that the person who was screaming was a young man. And this person wasn't unfamiliar to her. It was one of the disciples from the Lingyun sect who was with Zhao Yunji. At this moment, he was holding his bleeding arm and looking at the young man in front of him in panic and anger. "Are you a beast? You actually eat human flesh." Once this was said, everyone was shocked. The young man looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. He was wearing a grayish-white linen shirt that didn't fit him. Probably because it was too shabby, the clothes didn't look like it originally did. Although he wasn't short, he looked very skinny. His bones swayed in his clothes as if he was wearing a sack. He had short, golden hair that was soft and shiny, reflecting a faint light under the sun. His hair covered most of his face, but one could still see his youthful face and sharp chin. At this moment, he was biting a piece of bloody flesh in his mouth. It was the flesh that he had bitten off the arm of the young man in front of him. He spat out the piece of flesh expressionlessly and coldly spat out a word. "Stinky." His expression and tone were so calm and indifferent, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. But it was this appearance that made one's heart turn cold. The young man standing in front of him choked. He didn't dare to ask where the word "stinky" came from. He instinctively felt that he didn't want to know the answer. The onlookers also unconsciously quieted down for a moment. Everyone could see that this young man wasn't simple. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and frowned slightly, as if he was disgusted. The young man's heart couldn't help but beat violently. A sense of uneasiness quickly spread from the bottom of his heart. What do you want to do?" he asked fiercely, his voice trembling slightly. However, the golden-haired young man didn't say anything. He only tilted his head and looked at him. Immediately, his figure suddenly took half a step back and arched his waist. His whole body was filled with amazing tension. The next moment, his figure rushed out quickly like a lone wolf in the wilderness. This time, he raised his hand. His calloused hand turned into a claw and grabbed the young man's neck tightly. His speed was so fast that the young man was pushed to the ground before he could react. Cough, cough. "I admit defeat." Cough, cough. The young man raised his head and met the cold brown eyes under the blonde hair. He shuddered and admitted defeat without hesitation. The golden-haired young man's eyes flashed with a touch of regret, as if it was a pity that he couldn't continue fighting. But in the end, he still let go of his hand. Even if he won the match, his expression didn't change. After looking around, he walked down the stage. Then he walked straight to Chu Luiyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 489. The young man had an unruly wildness about him, and he looked like a young beast. Chu Luiyue's gaze swept past the jade slab and landed on him. The two of them looked at each other. "Chang Wanzhou." Chu Luiyue was the first to speak with a smile. The young man nodded. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. This young man seemed to have come from the border or a desolate swamp. She didn't expect him to have such an elegant name. This name and his temperament were really worlds apart. "My name is Chu Luiyue." The young man glanced at her. "I know." So many people called her just now, and he heard it clearly. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but laugh. This young man didn't seem to be as unreasonable as he seemed on the surface. On the contrary, he seemed to be a little naive. "I need your help," Chang Wanzhou said straightforwardly. Chu Luiyue leaned back in her chair with interest. "Oh, what kind of help?" Most people wouldn't ask strangers for help easily, but it was rare for him to say it so confidently. "I want one of your kindling." Chu Luiyue's smile froze. "What did you say?" Chang Wanzhou looked at her expression and frowned slightly. "I won't ask for your help for free." In return, I can be your follower for 10 days. Chu Luiwei opened her mouth. Do you know what you're saying? 20 days. It's not a matter of time, but 30 days. That's the most. Chu Luiwei rubbed between her eyebrows, feeling a headache. This child seemed to be quite good at fighting, but why did it seem like there was something wrong with his brain? Chang Wenzhou, right? Come here and sit down first. Chang Wenzhou was about to shake his head, but Chu Luiwei beat him to it. If you don't sit down, I won't agree. Chang Wenzhou glanced at her, then walked to the seat next to her and sat down. Chu Luiwei inadvertently glanced at him and found that his sitting posture was very standard. His shoulders and back were straight, and his aura was awe-inspiring, as if he had specially learned it. If one did not look at his shabby clothes, his actions would make him look like a noble young master that could only be nurtured by an aristocratic family. After sitting down, he looked straight at Chu Luiwei, obviously waiting for her answer. Chu Luiwei sighed softly in his heart and raised a finger. First of all, this is not how you ask for help. Secondly, even if you agree to be my follower for a year, I'm not interested. Thirdly, do you know what a fire seed is? Chang Wenzhou's cold and unruly gaze swept across her fingers. Firstly, I'm the one who's asking for your help. Naturally, I'll do it my way. Secondly, I've said it before. 1 month at most. 1 year is absolutely impossible. Third, I know what kindling is. Aren't you a celestial physician? Naturally, you have a fire seed. Chu Luiwei's eyes widened slightly. Who told you that as long as you're a celestial physician, you have a fire seed? Chang Wenzhou's face was full of vigilance. Of course, someone told me. Chu Luiwei face-bombed. That's a liar who lied to you. Only a top celestial physician can condense a fire seed. With my current level, I can't do it no matter what. I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. Chang Wenzhou suddenly stood up, his face full of anger. Who are you calling a liar? Chu Luiwei was taken aback. She did not expect Chang Wenzhou to have such a big reaction to this sentence. It seemed that the person who told him this was very important to him. Ahem, that's not what I meant. You don't seem to know much about celestial physician. I really can't help you with this matter. However, there are many outstanding celestial physicians in West Hill. You can look for them. Seeing that Chu Luiwei's expression was sincere and did not seem to be lying, Chang Wenzhou did not continue to be angry. I don't need any other celestial physician. Only you can help me, he said stubbornly. Chu Luiwei did not immediately respond. The flames that she created were indeed different from others. Could it be Chang Wenzhou came for this? The so-called fire seed was condensed by a celestial physician's force into flames. A celestial physician would place a fire seed in another cultivator's body. The latter would be able to use their force to continuously grow the fire seed, allowing them to use flames in battle. As the cultivator's realm increased, the fire seed in their body would also grow. In the end, some could even completely integrate the power of the fire seed and become a celestial physician. This was also the method that some people who wanted to become a celestial physician would use. However, how could it be so easy to condense a fire seed? It would consume a lot of the celestial physician's force and energy, but the success rate was extremely low. For a celestial physician, refining a fire seed was a thankless task. No one would be willing to help others refine a fire seed for free. However, in Chang Wenzhou's eyes, it seemed to be an easy task. Chu Luiwei looked at his stubbornness and felt a headache coming on. It seemed to be difficult to persuade him. You don't want to help me? Chang Wenzhou asked belatedly. Chu Luiwei shrugged helplessly. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't want to help, but I really can't. Chang Wenzhou said firmly. You don't want to help me. This time, it was a statement. Chu Luiwei's eyes flashed slightly. However, Chang Wenzhou didn't say anything else. He turned his head and looked at the arena. His expression was as indifferent and calm as ever, as if he didn't care too much about this matter. However, Chu Luiwei was suddenly curious as she leaned closer and asked softly, Why? Why do you want a fire seed? You're so talented as a martial artist. There's no need for you to be a celestial physician. Chang Wenzhou glanced at her. I don't want to be a celestial physician. Then what do you want a fire seed for? Chu Luiwei was even more confused. Chang Wanzhou paused. I want a fire seed to prolong my life. As he spoke, a trace of loneliness flashed across the young man's young and arrogant face. I'm looking for someone, but I haven't found her yet. I'm afraid that I'll die before I find her. His tone was indifferent. However, Chu Luiwei realized that when he said that he was about to die, he didn't have any emotional fluctuations. However, when he mentioned that he couldn't find that person, he revealed a trace of unconcealable sadness. It was as if that person was more important than his life. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. Is that person very important to you? The expression on Chang Wanzhou's face had returned to normal. Hearing this, his lips pursed slightly, his chin tensed up, and he said firmly, She's the most important person to me. Chu Luiwei's heart seemed to be touched by something soft. She didn't say anything else. She just leaned back in her chair and looked at the arena. The two of them were silent, as if they had already let this matter go. Time passed by bit. There were fewer and fewer names on the black jade board. More and more people were being carried off the arena. When half of the competition was over, Chu Luiwei finally spoke softly. I can help you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 490. Chu Luiwei was a little surprised when she said that. She wasn't the kind of person who was overflowing with sympathy. Most of the time, it was more appropriate to say that she was ruthless and decisive. But for some reason, when she looked at Chang Wanzhou's lonely expression and said those words, she actually felt sad for a moment. This feeling was rare. She had never been willing to take the initiative to provoke people who had nothing to do with her, so as to avoid trouble. But Chang Wanzhou seemed to be different. Really? Chang Wanzhou heard her words and looked back. His brown eyes, covered by soft golden hair, were so bright that they seemed to be blooming for a moment. Chu Luiwei suddenly stopped hesitating. The corners of her lips curled up and she smiled. I've always been a man of my word. But according to the agreement, you have to be my follower for a month. Chang Wanzhou immediately nodded. Okay. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and bent his pinky. The agreement is the proof. Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. What are you doing? Chang Wanzhou said matter-of-factly, this is the highest level of agreement between people. Since you and I have an agreement, you can't go back on your word. Chu Luiwei. Looking at Chang Wanzhou's convinced expression, Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something. Did that person teach you this too? As expected, the young man nodded. Before this, she was the only one I've made an agreement with. You're the second. Why did it sound like he was holding a pinky promise with her because he thought highly of her? Chu Luiwei's eyes turned, but she calmly stretched out her pinky and made a pinky promise with him. The young man's hand was as cold as ice. Chu Luiwei glanced at him without batting an eyelid. No wonder he said that he needed a fire seed to prolong his life. This kid looked no different from an ordinary person, but his internal organs had already been invaded by the cold, evil qi. Most of the force in his body should have been frozen. Even in this state, he still had such strong combat strength. She really didn't know how amazing his true strength was. Come here. After making a pinky promise, Chu Luiwei hooked his finger at him. Chang Wanzhou leaned towards her in confusion. When he got closer, Chu Luiwei finally saw his face clearly. Then he was slightly stunned. This was actually an excessively beautiful young man. His skin was very white, almost translucent. Under his short blonde hair was a pair of brown eyes that were cold and proud, but pure and clean, like the snow on a mountain. Her nose bridge was high, and her lips were shaped like rose petals. The corners of her mouth were naturally upturned. His smooth jawline and sharp chin made him look clean and youthful. If it weren't for the fact that his facial features and demeanor were indeed that of a young man, Chu Luiwei would almost have suspected that this was a beautiful and moving girl. Chu Luiwei raised his hand and ruffled his golden hair. Chang Wanzhou was stunned at first, then frowned. What are you doing? Looking at his messy appearance, Chu Luiwei smiled and shook his little finger. Since the alliance has been established, it's effective, right? Today is your first day as my attendant. In other words, as an attendant, one should have the self-awareness of an attendant. What's the big deal about ruffling his hair? Chang Wanzhou stared at her for a while. A hint of anger seemed to flash in his beautiful eyes, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just turned his head and sat upright. After a while, he said coldly, "Got it?" Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. This Chang Wanzhou looks cold and unapproachable, but in fact, he seems to be very easy to coax. She now understood why the person he was looking for deliberately deceived him with a small lie. With this thought, the last bit of conflict in Chu Luiyue's heart completely dissipated. It just so happened that she was alone and helpless in West Hill. It would be good to have one more helper. Not to mention other things, Chang Wanzhou's talent and strength were very strong. His level should be at the peak of the 5th level now. According to his age, he could definitely be considered a top genius. "Where are you from?" Chu Luiyue asked. "Nanjiang." "Nanjiang? The Nanjiang of the Tianling dynasty?" Chu Luiyue's eyes widened slightly. Seeing Chang Wanzhou nod, Chu Luiyue was even more shocked. The Tianling dynasty had a total of 4 major territories, and they were all barren lands. Among them, the southern border was even more deserted. There were swamps everywhere, and poisonous creatures were everywhere. Ordinary cultivators would die if they went there. He actually came from there? Who brought you here? For a cultivator with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he went all the way to Nanjiang to bring her back. This was too, no one brought me here. Chang Wanzhou said, "I grew up in Nanjiang. I came when Thousand Reed Lake started to dry up." Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. Seeing that she didn't speak, Chang Wanzhou added, "It's been exactly 5 months." Chu Luiyue took a while to recover. "So you're saying that you came to the West Hill from the Thousand Reed Lake of the southern border alone?" Chang Wanzhou nodded. Chu Luiyue was shocked. What kind of person was he? He was only in his teens, but he could actually walk out of Nanjiang alone and cross thousands of miles to West Hill. A thought suddenly flashed through her mind. "You came to West Hill to find that person?" As expected, Chang Wanzhou said with certainty, "Yes." This answer was more determined and serious than before. Chu Luiyue asked hesitantly, "But every participant is brought by someone. Who did you go to Xenli Garden with?" Looking at Chang Wanzhou, how could he have gone alone? Chang Wanzhou frowned. "That person seems to be called Yu Minhan. I don't know him, but he told me that as long as I win first place in the Wanzheng competition and become famous, I'll be able to find the person I'm looking for." Chu Luiyue immediately understood. That person called Yu Minhan must have discovered Chang Wanzhou's talent and deliberately tried to rope him in and trick him into participating in the Wanzheng competition. Chang Wanzhou came from Nanjiang and was inexperienced. When he heard that he could find the person he was looking for, he naturally agreed. "That Yu Minhan, do you know which sect he is from?" Chang Wanzhou's expression froze, and he shook his head. "I didn't ask." Chu Luiyue was speechless. This child was really honest. He didn't even know who the other party was before he boarded the other party's pirate ship. "When you signed up, you should have written his name and sect. Didn't you notice?" Chang Wanzhou suddenly fell silent. His golden hair fell down and covered his eyes. However, Chu Luiyue inexplicably saw a trace of embarrassment. His fingers curled slightly. After a while, he said, "I can't read." Chu Luiyue reacted and thought to herself that she was really stupid. Chang Wanzhou grew up in Nanjiang. It was not easy for him to survive until now. Naturally, he did not have the opportunity to read and write. However, just as she was thinking of how to comfort him, Chang Wanzhou suddenly looked up and pointed at the black jade board. "But I recognize your name. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 491. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. "It seems that we're quite fated. Is the person you're looking for also called by this name?" Chang Wanzhou shook his head. "I don't know her name. She asked me to call her Yu, so I recognized this word." Chu Luiyue rested her chin on one hand, feeling a little strange. It just so happened to be the same as her name, she asked tentatively. She's from West Hill? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Chu Liyue's brows twitched slightly. This person can't really be a liar, right? In her previous life, after she was born, her father personally gave her the name Yu. After she was conferred the title of princess, no one in West Hill used this word to avoid taboo. Those who were born later were better off and avoided, but those who used this word before changed it to something else. That person said that she was from West Hill, but she said that her name was Yu. Either that was her original name, or she made it up. If it was the former, it would be fine. Chang Wanzhou would recognize that person's face when he saw her. But if it was the latter, Chang Wanzhou's efforts would be in vain. He might not be able to find her in this lifetime. Is she very good to you? Chu Liyue asked. Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely. Of course. She was the one who gave me my name. Looking at his resolute expression, Chu Liyue swallowed the words that were in her throat. If she told him this now, he would definitely not believe her. He might even be angry with her. It was better to wait for a while and understand more before telling him slowly. Thinking of this, Chu Liyue put away her thoughts and smiled. Your name is indeed very good. Chang Wanzhou turned his head expressionlessly. After a moment he said, Of course. Chu Liyue glanced at him and saw that his earlobes were slightly red. She held back her laughter and looked back at the arena. Most of the matches had already ended, and only a small number of people had yet to decide the winner. However, the atmosphere in the square was still very lively. After watching for a while, Chu Liyue suddenly thought of something and looked at Chang Wanzhou. All right, don't bite people in the future. Chang Wanzhou's aura suddenly turned cold. Are you calling me a vicious barbarian? He had heard such words too many times recently. Chu Liyue flicked him on the forehead. What are you thinking? I was afraid that the blood of those people would stain you. Your current situation isn't something that can be solved with a single fire seed. If you want to live longer, you have to be obedient. Chang Wanzhou didn't expect her to mean this. The fierce expression that he had prepared immediately disappeared, and he looked a little embarrassed. According to your strength, you can easily win against most of them. Why do you have to do this? Chu Liyue showed a trace of disdain on his face. The person who fought with you just now has a low aptitude. Don't you hate him too? Chang Wanzhou opened his mouth and lowered his head dejectedly. But I need their blood, Chu Liyue sighed. This child really doesn't know anything about my situation, she said in a low voice. Although the cold and evil aura in your body can be suppressed temporarily with the blood of these cultivators, it will do more harm than good in the long run. Don't do this again in the future, understand? Chang Wanzhou looked at her serious expression and nodded subconsciously. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason, she felt like she was taking care of a child. Dong. The sound of a distant bell suddenly rang out, reverberating throughout the entire square. Chu Liyue looked up and saw that the black cavalry in the distance had knocked on the bronze bell placed in the square. She looked at the black jade board as if she had sensed something. Indeed, she saw that only half of the name was left on it. Elder Qiushi rose into the air. The Wanzheng competition qualifiers are now over. Congratulations to the 196 winners. Enthusiastic cheers came from the crowd. There were also some people who were dejected, but almost no one cared. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. This was the eternal law of Xiling City. Elder Qiushi looked at Chu Liyue and the rest. Tomorrow morning, the same envoys, you will meet here. The Wanzheng competition will officially begin. His voice, which was full of energy, clearly fell into everyone's ears. Most of the contestants who had already won couldn't hide their excitement. After you go back today, I hope that you can all have a good rest and prepare for tomorrow's competition. The generous rewards are right in front of you. The doors of the top sects in Xiling will also be open to you. Elder Qiushi's words were undoubtedly a shot of adrenaline to these people. Everyone became more and more excited. Yes. Chu Liyue smiled, stood up and said to Chang Wanzhou, "Follow me." Chang Wanzhou nodded and followed him. Many people had already jumped down from the spectator seats to celebrate with the victorious contestants. The entire square was crowded. Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou passed through the noisy crowd, intending to leave quietly. Jiang Yucheng stood up and looked at Chu Luiyue again. When he saw the golden-haired youth behind Chu Luiyue, he couldn't help but frown. He had noticed that the two of them had been talking for a long time, and now they were leaving together. Do those two know each other? He asked calmly. The man beside him followed his gaze and immediately said, that youth came from Nanjiang and seemed to have been unintentionally dragged to participate in the Wanzheng competition. The two of them probably didn't know each other previously. Jiang Yucheng looked at the golden-haired youth carefully. Is Yuan Meridian? Also check on him. Yes. Jiang Yucheng turned to leave, but he suddenly saw Chu Luiyue turn around and smile, ruffling the youth's hair. The youth seemed a little angry, but he only glared at her and didn't say anything. Chu Luiyue pulled him again and left through the crowd. Jiang Yucheng suddenly felt a tinge of displeasure. He didn't know where this feeling came from, but he was indeed angry. That smile shouldn't have appeared again, even if it was just a little similar. Eldest young master, do you need me to do something? The man beside him asked softly. Jiang Yucheng said coldly, no need. With that he turned and left. Chu Luiyue teased Chang Wanzhou for a while and finally stopped when she saw the pale, almost transparent face turn red. It was fine to tease the child, but it wouldn't be good to make him angry. The place I live in is a little special. You'll know when you follow me. Let's go buy some herbs later and recuperate your body. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she had already made a list in her heart. TSK. This follower isn't cheap. Chang Wanzhou didn't talk much. Hearing her ramble, he mostly nodded. Stuff. A man suddenly blocked in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw an unfamiliar face. You are... The man didn't look at her. Instead, he looked at Chang Wanzhou and reprimanded him with a frown. Who allowed you to run around? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 492. With such a rude reprimand, those who didn't know better would think that he was someone from Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luiyue had already guessed this person's identity. You're Yu Minhan? The man glanced at her impatiently. That's right. As he spoke, he sneered at Chang Wanzhou. Did you tell her my identity? What else did you say? As he spoke, he was about to pull Chang Wanzhou away. Chu Luiyue's eyes were cold. She stepped forward and blocked Chang Wanzhou, smiling politely. I'm sorry, Chang Wanzhou won't go back with you. Yu Minhan sized up Chu Luiyue with an ugly expression. What do you mean by this? He's a member of my Azure Dragon gang. When it came to levels, it was very clear. Chu Luiyue understood. Oh, so it's another third-rate gang. She had heard of this Azure Dragon gang before. Its status was similar to Eight Paths sect. Among the many sects in Xiling City, it had always been at the bottom. Most of them usually behaved with their tails between their legs. Today, they were so arrogant to her, probably because she was an outsider from Heaven's Canopy. Chang Wanzhou has already told me what happened before. He just came to Xiling to look for someone. And you took this opportunity to coax him into participating in the Wanzheng competition. If I'm not wrong, as his leader, the better his results, the higher the reward you will receive, right? Chu Luiyue hadn't figured out the situation of the Wanzheng competition before, but in these 2 days, she had roughly grasped it. Sure enough, Yu Minhan's expression changed slightly. Don't talk nonsense. Chu Luiyue smiled, confirming her guess. It seemed that the reward was good, but it seemed that everyone was avoiding it. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you and I both know in our hearts. There's no need to be too ostentatious about this. In short, I must take Chang Wanzhou away today. And from today onwards, he has nothing to do with you and the entire Azure Dragon gang. How dare you? Yu Minhan suddenly became anxious. How dare you snatch people from my Azure Dragon gang? As he spoke, he harshly slapped Chu Luiyue. Before Chu Luiyue could move, a cool breeze blew past her ear. Bang! Chang Wanzhou punched Yu Minhan's heart. Yu Minhan was caught off guard. She was and fell heavily to the ground. Chang Wanzhou's aura was awe-inspiring, and he wanted to go forward again. Chu Luiwei hurriedly pulled him back. All right. It's better to avoid trouble. Besides, she didn't want to waste time and energy on this kind of thing now. She just needed to teach him a lesson and give him a warning. Chang Wanzhou stood still and looked down at Chu Luiwei's hand that was holding his wrist. He seemed to want to break free, but in the end he obediently stayed aside. Chu Luiwei's heart softened, and the corners of her lips curled up. In Chang Wanzhou's mind, as a follower, it seemed that he should be obedient. Even if he didn't like it in his heart, he silently accepted it. Chu Luiwei let go of his hand and chuckled softly. Thank you for just now. Chang Wanzhou was stunned. He looked up at her and saw her sincere expression. There seemed to be stars blooming in her eyes. He turned his head away awkwardly. It's my duty. Chu Luiwei didn't say anything else. It seemed that there was still a lot to teach him in the future. What are you doing? This is wiling. Do you dare to kill me? Yu Minhan struggled to get up from the ground, only to find that Chang Wanzhou's punch had caused him serious internal injuries. He immediately covered his chest and cursed angrily. It's not difficult to kill you, but now that he's my man, I don't want you to dirty his hands. As Chu Luiwei spoke, she took a step forward. She was clearly smiling, but the corners of her eyes and eyebrows carried a frightening cold pressure. Yu Minhan unconsciously took a step back. Chu Luiwei said softly, if you cooperate well, this matter will be over. Otherwise, I'd like to see how they'll react if they know that you randomly found someone to participate in the Wanzheng competition. Yu Minhan's face turned pale. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he said sternly, I don't care what you say. You want to sue my Azure Dragon Gang? You're thinking too highly of yourself. Today, Chang Wanzhou must stay. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a whistle from somewhere and blew it fiercely. A moment later, several figures suddenly rushed over from behind him. They surrounded Chu Luiwei and Yu Minhan. There was no need to ask to know that these were all people from the Azure Dragon Gang. Chu Luiwei swept her gaze over the crowd with a faint smile and teased Chang Wanzhou. I couldn't tell that they've really put in a lot of effort for you. Chang Wanzhou frowned. I'll take care of it. Chu Luiwei face-bombed. Children shouldn't always fight and kill all day. Chang Wanzhou's frown deepened. I'm not a child. Chu Luiwei gave him a comforting look. Seeing the two of them talking as if there was no one else around, Yu Minhan was furious. They didn't put them in their eyes at all. The Azure Dragon Gang didn't have a high status in West Hill, but Chang Wanzhou's appearance was an opportunity for them to make a meteoric rise. Previously, the higher-ups had asked him to find a cultivator with a Daijing Yuan meridian, but he was delayed by some matters. He planned to be punished when he returned, but he didn't expect to meet Chang Wanzhou. At that time, he had no choice but to persuade Chang Wanzhou to go there. He planned to make up the numbers and avoid punishment. Who knew that Chang Wanzhou's strength would far exceed their expectations? Judging from the situation in today's qualifiers, he really had a chance to get into the top few. Only then did he realize that he had found a treasure. Under such circumstances, how could he let Chang Wanzhou go? Go! He waved his hand suddenly. The people next to him immediately rushed up. However, at that moment, someone suddenly shouted from the side. What kind of place is Xuanji Square? How dare you act so presumptuously? Yu Minhan and the others glanced at them and immediately broke out in cold sweat. The people who came were the Black Cavalry. And from the looks of it, they seemed to be captains in the army. Officer, please don't misunderstand. We're not here to cause trouble. It's just a misunderstanding. This Chu Luiwei wants to steal our Azure Dragon Gang's people. You must not let her go. That person walked toward Chu Luiwei. Yu Minhan and the others were secretly happy. Chu Luiwei would not have a good ending after provoking the Black Cavalry. However, in the next moment, they saw that the person actually cupped his fists and bowed respectfully to Chu Luiwei. Miss Chu, I'm late and have startled you. The expressions on Yu Minhan and the others' faces froze. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 493. Why was this black cavalry soldier so respectful to Chu Luiwei? Sir, Yu Minhan said uneasily. Did you make a mistake? Didn't this Chu Luiwei come from outside heaven's canopy? Could it be that she had some powerful backing? Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. Colonel Duan, you don't have to blame yourself. After all, I caused this matter. Duan Ziyu shook his head. I'm responsible for your safety, so I naturally have to do everything well. He had been waiting in the audience, but he didn't expect Yu Minhan and the others to cause trouble for her. They were really tired of living. Chu Luiwei's gaze swept across the pale faces of Yu Minhan and the others. Actually, it's not a big deal. Fortunately, Colonel Duan came in time. I still have some things to do later, so let's go first. Duan Ziyu stepped aside. Yes. Please, Yu Minhan and the others suddenly sighed. To be able to get the Black Cavalry's colonel to protect her so closely, it was enough to prove that Chu Luiwei's background was extraordinary. Yu Minhan couldn't help but secretly regret. He should have checked before. Chu Luiwei stepped forward. Chang Wanzhou also followed. When Chu Luiwei walked past Yu Minhan, she stopped in her tracks. If you still want to take Chang Wanzhou back, I'll be waiting for you. Yu Minhan shuddered. I wouldn't dare. Miss Chu, please. Chu Luiwei was used to this kind of face and left indifferently. It wasn't until the two of them walked past that Yu Minhan glanced at Chang Wanzhou unwillingly. That was a good seedling, but he was snatched by Chu Luiwei just like that. Azure Dragon Gang? Duan Ziyu walked over and said coldly. Only then did Yu Minhan remember that there was a great god standing next to her that she couldn't afford to offend. I know my mistake. Perhaps the top sex could barely stand on equal footing with the Black Cavalry, but they did not dare to offend them in the slightest. He didn't want to implicate the entire Azure Dragon Gang because of his own affairs. Sir, this lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I didn't know that Miss Chu's backer was actually you. I have offended you for a moment, please don't take it to heart. Yu Minhan nodded and bowed to apologize, almost kneeling down. The corners of Duan Ziyu's mouth suddenly twitched. You're wrong. I'm not qualified to be her backer. What? Yu Minhan was stunned for a while. Seeing the smile on Duan Ziyu's face, her heart gradually sank. Duan Ziyu knocked his shoulder with the hilt of his sword. Next time, before you do something, find out if the person is someone you can afford to offend. After saying that, Duan Ziyu lifted his foot and left, quickly chasing after Chu Luiwei. Yu Minhan and the others looked at each other in dismay. A few people came forward and asked anxiously. Fourth brother, will we be all right? Yu Minhan's face was gloomy, and she slapped that person hard. Can't you tell whether we'll be all right or not? That's the captain of the Black Cavalry. It was usually difficult for them to even meet such a person, but now they had offended the person he wanted to protect. More importantly, it was obvious that someone of a higher rank than him had ordered him to do so. The person who wanted to protect Chu Luiwei had a higher status than the captain. That person was probably one of the top figures in West Hill. Then Chang Wanzhou, are we just going to let them take him away? He has a Daijing Yuan meridian. Another person spoke insensibly, and Yu Minhan kicked him again. How could she care about that now? The entire Azure Dragon Gang was probably going to be in trouble. Go back immediately. Find the gang leader. Chu Luiwei left Xuanji Square with Chang Wanzhou, and Duan Ziyu quickly followed. After walking for a while, there were fewer people around. Duan Ziyu finally asked, Miss Chu, are you going to take young Master Chang back? Chu Luiwei looked at him thoughtfully. I do have this plan, but I don't know if the Deputy General will agree. Duan Ziyu was really curious about why Chu Luiwei did this, but he knew his identity and would never ask anything he shouldn't ask. Therefore, he only said, the inspection in the mansion has always been strict, and outsiders are not allowed to get close easily. But if Miss Chu says it herself, it will naturally be different. Chu Luiwei laughed. It didn't matter whether Mu Qinghe agreed or not. At most, she could help Chang Wanzhou find an inn. By the way, Captain Duan, I want to buy some medicinal herbs. I wonder if you can take me there? Duan Ziyu was a little surprised. But when he thought of how Chu Liuyue's force fire was clearly a talented celestial physician, it was normal for her to want to buy medicinal herbs. Come with me. After walking a few streets, Duan Ziyu brought Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou to an enormous medicinal herb shop. Chu Liyue looked up and saw 3 shining golden words on a magnificent signboard. 100 Herbs Building. Miss Chu, this is the largest medicinal herb shop in Xiling City. You can buy whatever you want here, Duan Ziyu said. Duan Ziyu said. Chu Liyue rubbed her nose. She wasn't worried about whether there was anything she wanted here, but she might not be able to afford it at all. 100 Herbs Building was the largest medicinal herb shop in Xiling. It had a complete range of high-quality goods and expensive prices. Her 10 white crystal coins might seem like a lot to ordinary people, but here, it was barely enough. Moreover, although she had heard a lot about 100 Herbs Building, she had never been here before. The Tianling dynasty's royal family stored a large number of precious medicinal herbs, and at the same time, she personally took care of Xianli Garden. There was almost no shortage of medicinal herbs, so naturally, she wouldn't come to a place like this. Chu Liyue originally wanted Duan Ziyu to bring her to any shop, but she didn't expect him to pick the most expensive one. But since she was already here, she couldn't just turn around and leave. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and walked in first. As soon as she stepped over the threshold, a waiter greeted her warmly. Miss, what would you like to see? Chu Liyue glanced around. It was a special, wide, rectangular hall. Rows of transparent crystal cabinets were neatly arranged, and all kinds of medicinal herbs were placed inside. In the corresponding places, there were names and introductions as well as prices. Chu Liyue took a cursory glance, and her eyelids twitched. 100-year-old blood lingji costs 3 white crystal coins? What's the difference between this and robbery? I'll just look around first. Chu Liyue's expression didn't change, and she still looked calm and noble. The waiter responded respectfully. I'll come again after you've taken a look. After saying that, he tactfully retreated to the side. In the entire hall, there were about 100 people choosing medicinal herbs. There were also many waiters like this, and they were scattered everywhere, and their attitudes were extremely good. Chu Liyue walked along a row of crystal cabinets, and after a few steps, she stopped. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 494. A palm-sized coral lay quietly in the crystal cabinet. It was orange-red in color, with a faint white color at the end. It was as clear as jade. This was a top-grade Xidigarba coral. Whether it was the size, shape, or texture, they were all excellent. Even someone as picky as Chu Liyue liked it at first glance. This thing had an excellent effect on dispelling the cold evil aura in Chang Wanzhou's body, so it was a must-to-buy. Chu Liyue's gaze shifted slightly, and she glanced at the price. 10 white crystal coins. A Xidigarba coral would empty her entire fortune. Not to mention the other herbs she would need. Chu Liyue had a headache. Before her rebirth, she had almost never bought anything with her own money. After her rebirth, she could also afford the prices in country Yaochen. But not here. White crystal coins were not that easy to earn. Wu Zhao, as a stage 5 warrior, had been in Pingliang Square for so long, but he only had a few coins on him. Not to mention her. Chu Liyue crossed her arms with one hand and touched her chin with the other, deep in thought. It seemed that she had to think of a way to earn money as soon as possible. I'll take this. Chu Liyue said. The waiter waiting at the side immediately smiled and went forward. You have good taste. This is the most beautiful piece of Xidigarba coral in this batch. You took a fancy to it as soon as it was displayed. Chu Liyue was completely indifferent to this kind of rhetoric, but she still nodded in agreement. This thing is indeed not bad. The manservant's expression was rather proud. Don't worry, the things in our 100 Herbs building have always been the best. Take a look, is there anything else you want? Chu Liyue waved her hand. I'll take this first. Let me take a look. The waiter was smart and didn't say anything else. He put on his gloves and planned to take out the thing. Wait, I'll take this piece of Xidagarba coral. A delicate woman's voice came from behind. Chu Luiwe looked back. The one who spoke was a woman in a yellow robe who looked to be about 20 years old. She was tall and had a pretty face. However, the corners of her eyes were raised high, and there was an air of arrogance between her brows, which made people feel uncomfortable looking at her. Her eyes were fixed on the Xidagarba coral, as if she did not notice Chu Luiwe and the others. Standing beside her was a young man in his mid-20s. He wore a moon-white robe and had handsome features. He looked at the yellow-robed woman with a doting gaze. The corners of Chu Luiwe's mouth twitched ever so slightly. What a coincidence, it was another familiar face. This woman was Jiang Yuqing's younger sister, Jiang Yuji. And that man was the Xiahou family's second young master, Xiahou Tingan. These two people were somewhat related to her in the past. There was no need to mention Jiang Yuji. Back then, after she set the engagement with Jiang Yuqing, she wanted to get closer to Jiang Yuji. However, there seemed to be a barrier between the two of them, and they could not get along. In addition, Jiang Yuji made a mistake because of her stubbornness and was reprimanded by her once. Hence, she was even more unhappy with her and went against her multiple times. Hence, she did not pay much attention to Jiang Yuji. On the other hand, Shangguan had always been on very good terms with Jiang Yuji. The two of them were close friends and were very close. As for Xiahou Tingan, he was the study companion of the princes and princesses in the palace since he was young, so he was quite familiar with them. The most important thing was that he was interested in her and even wanted to marry her. Chu Luiwe rejected him from the start and did not take this matter to heart after that. However, at this moment, seeing the two of them together, she still felt a little strange. Fourth Missy Jiang, I'm really sorry, but this lady already wants this piece of Xidagarba coral. The page boy clearly recognized the rich and powerful in Xiling City as he immediately said apologetically and carefully. Jiang Yuji knitted her brows and then looked at Chu Luiwe. Seeing that gorgeous face, she was shocked for a moment. When did Xiling have such a person? People of the same sex repelled each other. Jiang Yuji had never liked people who were more glamorous than her, so she felt a little disgusted. She sized up Chu Luiwe from head to toe. This lady in red did not have any extra accessories on her, and her clothes were not made of any luxurious material. She looked very plain. She must be from a lowly background. On second thought, she guessed that she should be someone from outside heaven's canopy. The disdain in her eyes could not be hidden. Has she paid? The page boy paused. Not yet, but if she hasn't paid, then it's not considered her item. Oh, bye. There's no problem, right? As she spoke, she raised her hand. A servant behind him took a step forward and placed 10 white crystal coins on the crystal cabinet. Jiang Yuji smiled delightedly at Xiahou Tingan. Tingan, earrings made from that piece of Xidagarba coral will definitely be very beautiful. Don't you think so? She used 10 white crystals to buy a piece of high-quality Xidagarba coral just to make earrings. There weren't many families in Xiling who could be so extravagant. Xiahou Tingan pinched her nose dotingly. Yes. Everything will look good on you. Jiang Yuji's smile deepened, and she looked like a little woman who was immersed in love. She did not care about anyone else at all. The page boy looked at Chu Luiwe with a troubled expression. Everyone knew that whoever asked for it would get it first. But in front of such a rich and powerful person, their words were the rules. If Jiang Yuji wanted it, he did not dare to not give it to her. Miss, I'm really sorry. Fourth Missy Jiang is our shop's VIP, so I'm afraid we can't give you this piece of Xidagarba coral. But don't worry. As compensation, we'll find a piece that you're satisfied with and give you a 20% discount. What do you think? Chu Luiwe laughed. 2 white crystals and you want me to compromise? When did I become so easy to talk to? If it were someone else who said it nicely, I might be merciful and give it up. Anyway, I'm just buying this to make medicine. It's fine as long as the effects are the same. But the other party is Jiang Yuji. I can't back down no matter what. I don't think so. Chu Luiwe said directly. I told you to wrap it up just now, so this deal is settled. This Xidagarba coral is also mine. If other people come again, they'll be queued behind and have no right to snatch it from me, right? The page boy almost couldn't keep the smile on his face. Is this woman going to go against Jianghu in public? That's the Jiang family's fourth Missy, the current prince consort's biological sister. Who doesn't know that Jiang Yuqing has a lot of power now? Everyone can't wait to curry favor with the Jiang family. Who would offend them like this? As expected, Jiang Yuji was shocked when she heard this. What did you say? Chu Liwen knocked on the crystal cabinet, and her black jade-like eyes were calm. I said, I don't agree to give this to you. Jiang Yuji had been spoiled by others for a long time, and her temper had risen. She couldn't bear to hear the word, no. Now that she saw that such a small character actually dared to go against her, she was furious. Say that again? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 495. Chu Luiyue smiled lightly. The Jiang family is an aristocratic family, and fourth Missy Jiang has a distinguished status. I'm sure you know the principle of first come, first served. You shouldn't be able to snatch other people's things, right? This smiley sentence made Jiang Yuji choke. You! This girl is so sharp-tongued. Just as she was about to go up and teach the other party a lesson, Xiahou Tingan gently said, Yuji, this Missy is right. Jiang Yuji looked at him angrily. Are you going to speak up for her too? Don't tell me I've taken a fancy to this girl's looks. Xiahou Tingan saw her expression and knew that she misunderstood. He smiled and patted her hand. What are you thinking about? As the Jiang family's fourth Missy, you really shouldn't do this. If not, the Grand Tutor will scold you again when he finds out. Hearing him mention her father, Jiang Yuji then restrained herself. As the Grand Tutor, Jiang Lizhua had strict requirements for himself and the Jiang family, so Jiang Yuji was very afraid of him. But I just want that piece of Jizo coral. Jiang Yuji stomped her feet indignantly. Don't worry. I'll find everything you want for you. Xiahou Ting comforted her for a while before stepping forward with a generous smile on his face. We don't want to snatch things that others like. However, it's rare for Yuji to meet something she likes. So, I'll pay twice the price to buy this thing. The highest bidder wins. Is there a problem? As he spoke, the servant behind him went forward again and took out another 10 white crystals. The page boy looked at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. This Missy, you see, Chu Luiyue raised her brows. It's true that money makes the world go round. The other party is paying twice the price, so it's not wrong. If I use the same excuse from before, I'll be at a disadvantage. Just as she was hesitating, Duan Ziyu suddenly said, Mississippi Master said that he'll try his best to satisfy all your requests during this period. If you really want this piece of Xidigarba coral, just let me know. Chu Luiyue looked at him in surprise. He really said that? Duan Ziyu nodded. The day before, when Master returned, he specifically instructed this subordinate about this matter. Of course, that was not what Mu Qinghe had said. What he said was that since Chu Luiyue was brought here by him, everything he did in West Hill was related to his reputation. He asked Duan Ziyu to take good care of him. If they lost because of 10 white crystals and this matter spread out in the future, those who did not know would think that Mu clan was poor and stingy. Chu Luiyue could probably guess what Mu Qinghe meant. Although he didn't care much about extravagance, as the deputy general of the Black Cavalry of the Tianling dynasty, he would never back down when he needed to be strong. Chu Luiyue's lips slowly curved up. This feeling doesn't seem bad? Thank you, Lieutenant Duan. Duan Ziyu said respectfully. Miss Chu, you're welcome. After saying that, he walked forward and threw out a money bag. There are 40 white crystals in here. We want this item. Everyone was dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? Using 40 white crystals to buy a piece of Xidigarba coral? Even if it's of better quality, it might not be worth this price. Is this person crazy? Duan Ziyu looked at the page boy. The highest bidder gets it, right? The page boy hurriedly said. I'll help you now. Jiang Yuji anxiously pulled Xiahou Tingan's sleeves. Xiahou Tingan nodded at her and raised his voice. I'll pay 50 white crystals. No matter what, I'm the second young master of the Xiahou family. When have I ever lost because of money? Especially since Jianghu is here, I can't let others step on me. Duan Ziyu didn't even turn his head. 100 white crystals. He actually doubled it. The entire exhibition hall was silent for a moment, and everyone looked over. In the entire exhibition hall on the first floor, there isn't anything worth more than 100 white crystals. Someone actually paid 100 white crystals for a piece of Xidigarba coral? There's nothing wrong with his brain, he's just rich. Mu Qinghe is really rich. Chu Luiyue touched his chin. Most people thought that Mu Qinghe was just a general who started from scratch and relied on his own capabilities to become a new noble in Xiling. Even though his status was high, his family's wealth couldn't be compared to the aristocratic families in Xiling City. But in actual fact, the best way to earn money was through war. The Huang Swamp had been rebellious for decades, and Mu Qinghe led his troops to suppress them with his iron fist. His wealth was simply uncountable. Jianghu and Xiahou Tingan were of noble birth, but their families were huge. In terms of money, they weren't as free as Mu Qinghe. As expected, Xiahou Tingan's expression changed. It wasn't that he couldn't take out 100 white crystals. But to him, this wasn't a small sum. If his family knew that he used so much money to buy a piece of Xidigarba coral, he would definitely be harshly reprimanded. His throat was dry as he looked at Jianghu awkwardly. Yuji, even though this item is good, it's not worth so much money. Why don't we look at something else? I'll buy it for you. How about that? Jianghu's face immediately pulled long. Tingan, are you unwilling to spend money for me? If you're not willing, I'll buy it myself. As she spoke, she acted like she was going to fork out money. Seeing that she was angry, Xiahou Tingan immediately tried to curry favor with her. I was just joking with you. Why did you take it seriously? Of course, I'll buy it for you if you like it. Jianghu was doubtful. Really? Xiahou Tingan could only nod. Of course. He looked at the page boy and clenched his teeth. I'll add another 5 white crystals. Someone suddenly laughed out loud. Even though this voice disappeared very quickly, everyone could hear the mockery in it. Compared to Duan Ziyu's generosity when he said that he would double the price, these 5 white crystals were really stingy. Xiahou Tingan's face instantly flushed red. He also felt embarrassed. But this was really my limit. Duan Ziyu's expression didn't change. 150. Xiahou Tingan's face turned pale again. Countless gazes landed on him, and he felt as if there was a dagger on his back. He turned around and glanced at Jianghu, but he saw her expectant expression as she anxiously said, Tingan, quickly increase the price. This item is going to be snatched away by them. Easy for you to say. Anger surged up in Xiahou Tingan's heart. How can I not know what Jianghu is thinking? She has always been arrogant and never wants to lose, but she's worried that the Grand Tutor will reprimand her for spending money recklessly. That's why she's rushing me to pay the bill. I've been thinking of ways to curry favor with her in the past year, and the two families are already discussing the marriage agreement. If I make her unhappy at this time, won't all my hard work in the past year go to waste? He opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Duan Ziyu said, no matter how much second young Master Xiahou offers, we'll add another 50 white crystals. We must have this Xidigarba coral. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.